are the things that I've never done, Zooming.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else? Is there something particular that you want out of this class? Yes, Zeta.
My subjects I present on are very dry and nerdy, and I just like to make them a little bit more audience and friendly and engaging, or can I use the word sexy? You know, like there's so many things I need to present on or words, but all my slides always end up just being lots of words.
Really dense, information heavy. Okay, that makes sense. Yes, Brandon, Janelle.
I'm looking to do some patterning classes. So I'm looking at how to use the Drive functions and the Google pieces for this to be able to present it effectively in class.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else? Alice Guy?
I've been doing a scribe night every Tuesday for like the last year, and learned Google Slides to a certain level for that, but I want to be able to do it better. You know, I'm sure there's tricks and things that I don't know that I would love to learn.
Absolutely. Okay. Excellent. So what I'm hearing then is people are really looking at how to make sure that your slides are easily visible in Zoom and doing some of that, working with that technology to make your presentations effective on a technological level. You want to work on how to make them audience friendly and a little bit sexier, kind of fun, so that you can, yes, you have a dry, information dense content, but the presentation doesn't have to be. And then you want to look at just really making effective use of your Drive functions to communicate your technology and to communicate some of those images and things that you need. Is that all right? Thank you for giving me that. I believe that you will find some useful information in this presentation. If, as we go along, you have a question, please don't hesitate. I'm going to be screen sharing, but if you unmute, you'll usually cycle in so I can see you. If you want to drop a question into chat, that will signal for me that you have a question. So please don't hesitate to unmute and ask your question or drop your question into chat to let me know to pause for a second. Also, fair warning, I tend to operate at about 1,000,000 miles an hour. This is me before too much caffeine. It gets worse after. So if you need me to slow down, hang on, repeat. I know you thought you were using English, Mary. It didn't sound like it. Don't hesitate to flag me and say, hang on, because I understand my own operating speeds. All right. So thank you for joining me. My name is Mary Dedwydd verch Gwallter. I am from Cayade, and my background, I've been a teacher for 25 plus years, and I'm a Google Level 1 certified educator, so I use a lot of Google tools in my professional career, and so I'm wanting to share a lot of that. Also, as a performer and a speaker, I use presentations pretty regularly, so I'm very familiar with them. And I'm happy to answer questions. If I'm close to touching on something and you want to, ask a question, please don't hesitate. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I don't have any videos to share with you, but I can show you how to do that. So for Marie, when you go to screen share, when you've got your program set up and you go to screen share, you look at the bottom green button and you click on share screen. But one of the things that you may want to do, especially if you're going to include video of any kind or an audio clip, in the bottom left corner of the dialog box that crops up, you'll see two little options: share sound and optimize for video clip. Click on both of those. And that way you don't have the experience of starting the video and all of your audience going, huh, what? I can't hear it. That's the box that has to be clicked, okay? I'm not going to click that box at the moment because I don't have any videos to share with you today. But all right, so I'm going to start in with my presentation, and at the end of my general presentation on what makes an effective PowerPoint type presentation, I'll talk about how to build a PowerPoint or a Google slide. Okay. Let's go back to the very beginning. There we go. All right. So we're going to talk about effective presentations. And I'm going to talk about stuff with some extra stuff. Okay. Good presentations. A good presentation is more than a report put on slides. And honest answer, here's the deal. If you remember nothing else of what I say today, remember this: keep the text to a minimum. Reduce the text, take it way down, okay? Keep your text to a minimum. That's part of it. People don't want to sit there and read a report. If they wanted to read a report, they'd say, give me the report. I'll sit down in my leisure in my easy chair and I'll read your report. They want to be talked to. They want to be communicated with. They also don't want to be read to, okay? So, because what you'll see, I don't know how many of you have seen the presentation where there's this big long text and they look over and they read the text and they smile at the audience and they click screens and then they look at the read the text and they smile at the audience and they change screens, which means they're basically reading to you. And you're like, if I wanted somebody to read to me, I would go to my local library story hour, thanks. Please don't read your presentation to me. So first, you're not putting a series of paragraphs on screen. Think of it more as a series of posters, okay? So that means the communication style is visual. It needs to be engaging with the use of color and not too text heavy. Think of all the really good posters that you've seen. Solid image, 1 or 2 powerful pieces of text, not too much. And it uses color to be engaging. Now, you have to use words at some point, but you want to use the good ones. You want to think like a poet. Use your words that are effective, that are engaging, and that are specific, okay? You're not writing paragraph upon paragraph. You're writing 7 to 10 words per line, maybe. And so your words need to be the most powerful you can find. Use those active verbs. Use the specific correct noun that you want. If you need to provide a definition for some of the things, give a definition. But use the word that you want people to understand that's going to convey exactly. Okay. Use that text sparingly and to the point. Less is more when you're approaching a presentation. Like I said, 7 words per line, 10 if you really want to push it, but that's pushing it. Okay. 7 words per line, make them count, specific, engaging, and effective. Also, you'll notice I haven't been using bullet points. Okay. The other thing I want you to notice is that going through here, have you had to worry about trying to read what I'm saying, or can you see it pretty clearly? Okay. That's because I'm really hitting a minimum size of about 36 points on my text. If I absolutely have to, because I'm presenting to I'm designing a presentation that's going to be like a self-read, I might go down to 18 points on my type, but no smaller. Otherwise, if I'm going to go smaller than 18 points, I'm like, you know what? Let me just write an essay and send it to you. You can read my essay at your leisure. So 7 words per line, make them count, make them big, 36 points. Okay. Seeing is better than saying. If they want to see something, let them see it. There's an old saying, picture's worth 1,000 words, and that's especially true in presentations. You can use graphics to make a point. Okay. Thank you. I know Alice Guy got it. I'm good. Yes, you've all been rickrolled. And sometimes when you don't quite have the words, picture can communicate a better idea. Okay, sometimes pictures communicate when words just fail you. Okay, so use that tool. It's amazing how much time you can reduce in a presentation when you have an effective, like a cartoon at the beginning, or a comic, or an image, to get your presentation mindset across, and then you can fine-tune people's reactions. So the other thing I want you to remember, the thing that's the most interesting about the presentation isn't what you have on screen. It's you. It's your knowledge. It's your depth of information. It's your enthusiasm. You are as much the presentation as that technology on screen. Okay? You're, in many cases, the most interesting thing that people are looking at. So recognize that you are interesting and engaging and know what you're talking about, and be that interesting person. What that looks like is that you talk to your audience instead of turning your back to them and reading the screen. Talk to them. You're the expert. Don't turn your back. Make eye contact. Look at them. They're interested. They want to see your face, because they also know, like, that communication, you can also help convey when something's really important. You can also help convey when something they can be a little relaxed about. And your audience is reading your tone and your body language as well. So you give them yourself as a following aid to help identify what's important and what they can relax about. Okay.
All right.
Yes.
If I can chime in real quick, this is actually something, now that you brought it up, I actually noticed. Like I said, you know, with my hearing issues and stuff like that, I tend to lip read a lot. I noticed the area behind you on camera makes for seeing your face and everything much better. I know, like, the background I've got now, I would never present here, but particularly in a, you know, since we're doing a lot of stuff via Zoom or what have you now, being able to see the presenter is also a good thing. And I
Yeah.
know on camera it's harder to turn your back, but yeah.
But yeah, and that's the other thing. Thank you for bringing that up, Edward, because we do have people who lip read, and that face is really important to help people connect and convey meaning and make things more accessible. Tina, yes.
On that same note, I know a lot of people do the special background things. And if you don't have that set up right and somebody is presenting, every time they move or their hand goes or something, either parts of them disappear or appear, and that becomes very distracting while watching them. I'm paying more attention to them going in and out of their background picture.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot of this, from a technical standpoint, a lot of that has to do with the fact that, you know, the simple way to mitigate that is to have like a green screen or a blue screen behind you, even if it's a piece of fabric. You can probably do it with white, but a solid color that is different than what you're wearing. I've seen people have, like, you know, a green background and they're wearing a green shirt, and all of a sudden their shirt disappears. And so you've got like disembodied arms, and which is funny if that's the effect you're going for. But yeah.
Well, I actually, on the technical side, advise, and this is the one part I feel really passionate about, I don't ever use, if I feel like this background, my office is to whatever, I'll grab a sheet and set that up. But with people's different backgrounds and stuff, you don't know what other people's bandwidth is like on the other side or what's going to lag out. So I actually, and I know a lot of people like doing the background to do the privacy thing, and I respect that, and there are reasons for it, but I really never recommend a background screen type thing because of, you know, your mentioned problems, but also the problem of when you're facilitating on what that's going to do to somebody else's experience and what your bandwidth is like, even in your home. There's just so many variables when you have stuff eaten up that way.
That's a really useful consideration. I'm not as aware in terms of the technology and the bandwidth, so that really helps kind of give a perspective. I like my analog background because it's comfortable and it's easy, and then when I'm done, I just open it up and I'm back to my sewing room.
Exactly, but like, no one knows what level people's RAM or processes or their processors are at on the distant end. So that's my only point. Okay, I'm quiet now because I have broken every rule of what you've been imparting on knowledge-wise. So now I have to remake slides. So this is great.
It's a weird transition, and it's hard. Part of it is, as presenters, sometimes we're afraid to trust our own knowledge.
Oh, and that's like knowledge. I just have all this stuff to share, and yeah.
It's thinking of your presentation as a poster there and get the key stuff, and then people will key in. And I'm giving some other points as well. These are the basic reminders though on a level of presentation. Make it big. Okay. Make it easy for people to see. Make it clear, because what you want is for people to think about what you're saying, not just passively absorb it. So make statements that people have to think about, that you take a stand on. Again, that's that very specific, very effective language. When I tell you, rather than say, what is Google Tools useful for? I say, Google Tools benefits group communication and collaboration on projects. Then I know right away when I'm watching that presentation, oh, I'm going to be learning about collaboration. How can I collaborate? And they start thinking. That clarity gets people to start thinking, and then you make it coherent. One of the things that I didn't do, but I will often do in a presentation, is right at the very beginning go, all right, here's 3 things you're going to hit. Okay, bang, bang, bang. We're talking about these things. So then people can also track, because what happens when people are watching a presentation, about 10, 15 minutes in, their brains start to go, where am I again? Oh, look, bird. Oh, wait, she's talking. You know, and they'll dial in and they'll dial out and they'll dial in. And if you have a coherent plan at the beginning, today we're going to be talking about this, this, and this, or you're going to see, I'm going to talk about myself for a minute. I'm going to blather about philosophy for a second, and then I'm going to say something important. And I've actually used that in a coherent, in a presentation like content page, so that people get a giggle, and then they start watching. They're like, oh, she's doing this part now. Oh, this is this part. So that tells your audience what they're queuing into and what to expect. And you can always go back to that screen to say, okay, we finished this part. Now we're going to talk about this part. Does that make sense? So your key reminders, make it big, make it clear, make it coherent, so people know, and they want to track you through your presentation. Okay. So that's, yes.
Sorry, a couple things just to throw out, and I've watched you do it a couple times. I don't know if it's natural or you're thinking about it, but a lot of times I find the order in which you put things on a slide make a big difference. The same thing in a conversation. So a lot of times either the first or the last item is what you really want people to focus in on. And I've done the trick where the item I really want them to remember might be just a little bit bigger in a font. So it stands out. Again, it's that clearer, that more bigger kind of thought pattern.
That's very helpful. Yes. And this is part of when you're ordering anything. The things that you most want people to remember, you need to put it right up front for the point that they're paying the most attention, or right at the very end when you catch them and you go, okay, here's the big finish. Because people are more likely to remember the 2 pieces of bread on the outside of the sandwich more than the inside of the sandwich.
Yeah. I present a lot to clients, and, you know, especially when you're asking for millions of dollars, you want to make sure that that last proposal, which is the most expensive, is the one that they're going to go after.
That they're going to be excited about.
Yeah.
And I like the technique that you talked about of making the thing that you really want to remember just subtly bigger. That's actually really cool, because that is playing a little bit of a mind game, because it's like, you know, it's that size.
The other cool thing, just to throw it out, is, you know, you can do really small brain tricks, so to speak, or mind tricks by like casting a little bit of a shadow on an item to bring it out a little bit clearer, doing, as you said earlier in your presentation, color coordination. One of your colors, I just didn't realize it. I might be a little colorblind because it didn't pop out very well for me. So some of the things you may want to also think about, depending on your audience, is how's that color play, both in small screen, big screen kind of conversations. I know Brianna was talking about doing patterns and that kind of stuff. So, you know, when you have a white pattern on a white background with, you know, maybe black lines, how does that play out versus maybe a little softer background in a gray tone or something along those lines? And there's some pretty cool websites that talk about, especially if you're doing website design, that talks about contrary colors and how colors can blend together a little bit to give you that pop.
That is very useful. Yeah, because that's the one area I like to use color, but I'm not super steeped in color theory from a presentation perspective. So that's actually really interesting to explore. All right, so this first half of the presentation then, this first half of the class is really what makes presentations effective in general, when you see them, when you give them. Does anyone have any questions, connections, observations from your own experience up to this point? Let me stop sharing for a second and let's chat for a minute before I kind of go into a little bit of things you can do in Google Drive and in Google Docs specifically. Questions, connections?
It might be a small point, but I have come across a situation whereby a complex slideshow, something that's doing a lot of things, like say there's video and audio on the slideshow itself. I've come across a situation where the bandwidth that the person was using, the incoming amount of information and then going straight back out again via Zoom, I think it was, caused their connection to drop. And they couldn't run the slideshow at the same time as they were running Zoom. Whereas if they were running it locally using actual PowerPoint or LibreOffice or something like that, they might have got away with it. But like I say, it's a small point. It probably doesn't apply to many people, but it still might be an issue for some.
It is a critical thing to remember. It's great to be able to put all these nifty things in your presentation. And sometimes thinking about that less is more rule, think about how do I transition that information to everybody else? So it might be more useful, instead of embedding the video so that it runs, just embedding the link. I will usually default to embedding the link rather than the video itself, because I don't mind taking the step to click the link. But that gives me, if I get catastrophic failure, I don't have to. I can go, okay, on your own, I'll send you the slides, go run the link, go run the video. Or, but that's part of that less is more. But yeah, keeping that observation about how much bandwidth do you have, how much bandwidth does your audience potentially have, can be useful. Thank you, Donick.
I like
Rowan.
Oh, go ahead, Rowan.
You didn't have, okay. Tina?
I did. So I was going back to what Rowan was saying about the color blindness, which when we're making these beautiful presentations, most of us don't think about that. So we're adding colors that might be an issue. I'm going to go look it up myself, but that might be something to think about when making presentations. So you're doing the visual colors for people, but what could you also do to that presentation to also make it have the pop for somebody that would not be able to see the colors? So you're still doing the colors for people, but you're changing something in the graphics or the font or something to do that.
So if I can answer that a little bit.
Please, Rowan, and then Edward, I see you. You're next. Go.
One of the things by doing websites, there are really good sites that talk about contrast. So I forget what the text was, Mary, that you had. It was kind of a yellow background with a little bit of an orange. There wasn't, for me, enough contrast to separate it out. However, if it was a darker orange or maybe a darker color, you could do things like that. There's also, depending, again, going back to some of the other concerns about bandwidth and graphics and all that, of how good or bad you may be in some of these things, is you can do things like line shadowing, where you see a lot of times you can create a small background shadow that gives a little bit of buffer between two colors, which might be a white space. Where I really see this a lot is if you ever look at people that do really, really effective banner making, depending on the Gouda color they're using to do their lines, sometimes, or you see it in some of the scribal stuff. I know some of the scribes that have done stuff for me, there's really good separators between just contrasting colors with a little bit of a neutral color. So there's little tricks like that you can play with.
So in terms of sometimes thinking about it heraldically, when we have two colors that are a little bit close together, we'll add a fimbriation, we'll add a good heavy divider of a contrasting color so that it pops those two colors separately, and that would be something to think about as well. Thank you.
I think they call it voided or something, if I remember, like Caradwin's device.
Be voided or fimbriated, yeah. Okay, so we have Edward had a comment, Agnes had a comment, and then Brianna. So I'm going to go in that order. Edward.
Yeah, I seem to recall it was WGBH, the public TV station here in the U.S., specifically in Boston. They pioneered a lot of like the accessibility features for TV and particularly the captions and all that. But I want to say, and it's been a couple of years since I've been out to their site, but they've got resources on things for like visual impairments. And if and particularly for web stuff, there's a piece of legislation that was passed here in the United States a couple of years ago. Was it Sarbanes-Huxley?
Yes.
That was looking at particularly, web and sort of stuff, to make it more accessible. Now you'll see a lot of folks like on Instagram in particular, where they'll put a square bracket and they'll put a description. I think it's comma separated description of what the picture is for people who are visually impaired. Because if you've got a, again, I think it's called an image reader or what have you, something like anyway, where basically it'll go in the nose to read that as a description for the image. And by law, all U.S. federal sites are supposed to do this. It's really hit and miss which ones do and don't. But yeah, if WGBH doesn't have the resources, they're certainly out there. Heck, you can go on YouTube and search for disability stuff, and you'll probably get 10 million hits or something like that.
Lots of useful hits. Okay, thank you, Edward. I'm gonna go Agnes, Brianna, Rowan, Zeta. I'm just kind of going through where I'm seeing the hands as they've gone up. Okay. Agnes.
Okay, I wanted to mention something. This is a tool that exists both in Photoshop, or if you don't have Photoshop, in GIMP, which is a open source, basically a free image manipulation program. And I wanted to emphasize the use of the curves tool, which you can use to increase visual contrast. If you're working with an image, a photograph or something like that, it doesn't really pop at you. You can work in curves, and there's some tutorials that are fairly easy to find that can just bring that image out a little bit. It doesn't have to make it look fake, but it can adjust it just a little bit so that people's eyes go directly to the information you want. Also, another option, if color might be an issue, is you can always grayscale it, and then you can grayscale and curves.
Thank you, Agnes. Zeta, sorry, I'm noticing your chat, so I'm gonna.
Sorry. Oh,
Since you're heading out, I'm gonna ask you, go ahead and let you jump the line, and then Rowan, and then Brianna and Rowan.
I was just typing it in. Okay. 30-second shameless plug on the ADA and the compliance side. Alicia DeBose is teaching a class later today, I believe, or tomorrow. And I mean, I've worked with her in the past on some events. She's from the same barony as me, and she is amazing and knows her stuff. So just shameless thing. It's going to be like, from what I've heard, she's really focused on accessibility and that entire subject. So just wanted to do a shameless plug there for my buddy, but also since we were on the subject. So
thank you very much. And thank you for stopping in. Brianna.
I'm going to add sort of to the grayscale. I'm going to go old school and talk visual contrast. Think about this is for those of us who are older. How often did you photocopy something out and it was absolutely incapable? So take and print on your printer in black and white any presentation you're going to do, and you can see what your contrast looks like.
That's a really good tip. Thank you. Yeah, so you print it out and look at it in a grayscale sense and see what the contrast is. That's
and can I photocopy it and make it clear to the next person I'm going to hand it to?
Nice. Thank you. Rowan, and then Alice Guy. Rowan.
Just kind of piggybacking on what Edward said, if you Google or if you search, depending on your favorite search program, do web accessibility. There's probably 100 programs out there or sites. There's actually now full-on doctoral degrees on accessibility and human factors area of interaction. So if you're looking for things, depending on the audience that you're displaying to, large, small, big screen, small screen, whatever it may be, pamphlets, books, that's the easiest way to find stuff. It talks about color contrast. It talks about everything you're already talking about. And I'll try to post something back in the discussion on Facebook, even though I hate Facebook.
Thank you for doing that. Yes, please.
Some sites.
Alice Guy.
So I'm doing Scribble topics. So I just, while we were talking, I looked over at one of the most recent Google Slides things that I had done that was on Italian white vine design. And like, I've got an image on like almost every single page. Is that too much? Is that, you know, so basically I'm like maybe looking for more technical kind of stuff. So I've got my screen with a picture on one side and some text on the other. And every single page has got, here's an Italian white vine scroll, and here's a different one, and look at this and look at that. Is that?
For me, I think more images is almost always better. Where I would be careful is look at your text and make sure when people are looking at a picture that you're giving them, let them know what they're looking for on this picture. Give them 1 or 2 or 3 keywords like white vine technique, use of contrast, those vines that everybody uses that are the big flowers that start with an A that I can never draw because I hate them.
Acanthus.
That's the one. That word, technical words that you want people to know, you know. But for each image, that way people aren't just going, okay, I'm looking at a illuminated manuscript. Okay, it's pretty. But if you go white vine, oh, look at that. So you're cueing your audience into what they're looking for. Rowan, you also had a contribution to that question.
Yeah, so I think this gets to be kind of an interesting thought pattern, and if I've taken up too much time, let me know. But I think between what Mary may have been asking earlier about what she's trying to do, and Al-Sky, what you're talking about, there's a difference when you think about the audience between a presentation in an educational aspect versus something like I'll do to customers or to, you know, as a keynote speaker at a conference or something along those lines, right? So the thing that I always kind of got, I learned this when I was at IBM, is what's the one thing on that slide you want them to remember? If there's only one thing at all, you want them to say, hey, I remember the graphic, or I remember the little scrolly thing with the A, or whatever it is. That's where you want to put the emphasis on. If it's on the word, then you want less picture, more word. Make sure that word is, as Mary was saying earlier, at least from a presentation to a non-educational side. And again, this may be a little bit different on how we approach things. But at the end of the day, it's always, what I always try to go by is, what's that one thing? If I could pick anything on that one slide, what is it besides, you know, whatever it is. And I do a lot of like slide background where I'm an image in an image when I'm doing Zoom presentations. So people can hear me and see me talk while they're also seeing the graphic. So, you know, where I put my face, so to speak, while I'm talking, and do things around that to kind of highlight little things too. So again, there's a couple of different thought patterns as you approach it.
And that's a really useful question to ask for whatever purpose your presentation is, you know, whether you're educating on a larger concept, whether you're wanting people to dial in to understand a visual idea. What one thing do I want people to walk away with? And honest answer, Rowan, there's a surprising lack of difference between an educational PowerPoint and a sales PowerPoint, because as educators, you better believe I'm selling you something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I want you to buy it.
You know, there's
those
things
are really
I can
useful
do.
techniques that you're talking about.
Yeah, there's things I can do that are shameless that I don't necessarily would, if I'm teaching, don't necessarily want to do that, right?
That's fair.
So I'll put little hidden tricks. It's you know, like doing nice scroll work. There's always that little hidden image that it takes you 14 years to find.
Oh, cookies are great. It's fun to leave cookies on a presentation,
yeah.
Especially if you've got one that people are going to come back to, because there's also the concept of, is this the presentation that I'm giving, or is this a presentation that I'm recording and leaving on a website for someone else to look at? You know, and those are different approaches too.
So, and there's another thought pattern, and I hate to take up more time, but from a business point of view, I don't want my information on the slide. I want enough for them where they're going to pick up the phone, call me, because again, I'm selling either a service or a product or something like that. So yeah. I want to entice them enough to where they have to pick up the phone or reach out to us to buy something. Where I think the little bit of difference of education is, again, am I going to post this so people can use it or record it like on YouTube or something along those lines with the information. So
right.
Understanding what you're the audience you're trying to convey that information to is extremely important as you build out and then ultimately present.
Exactly. And those are absolutely the right questions to be asking. What am I doing this for? Who do I want to get it? What do I want them to have when we're done? What do I need to leave them with? Those kinds of things. And I'm kind of operating on a presentation that I'm assuming that there is a presenter and a visual, not just the stock presentation on video, but more the presenter and visual. All right. So what I'd like to transition to at this point is kind of digging a little bit into Google Slides and playing with it a little bit so you can see some of the things that you can do. If that's okay with people, is that fitting what some people are needing and wanting? Okay. All right. So here I go screen sharing again. And what I've done is I've just kind of opened up. So this is what I went to was drive.google.com to show you to start into just starting from a completely blank slate. I actually set up a whole new Gmail for myself last night so that I could okay. So it's a completely blank slate. When you go to Google Drive, and this is where I operate all my Google out of, you can go to docs.google.com, sheets.google.com, slides.google.com, and you can get each function, each tool separately if you want to, but Drive embeds all of them and they're all equally accessible. So when you get into your Google Drive, your friend over here is this little plus sign. I organize everything into folders, okay? And you'll note that I can start a new doc, a new sheet, a new slide, a new form. Your presentation software is Google Slides, okay? And when you start, you can do a blank presentation or you can start from a template, okay? Depending on your need. So they have templates preset that you can sit there and, you know, is it general? You can set it up as a photo album, which might suit some of what you're looking at, Alice Guy. You can do it as a portfolio, recipe books, you know, think about a yearbook function. So there's a lot of possibilities here that you can dig into and explore for formatting. And what they will have is they will have some of the text and functionality embedded already in the document. I tend to like to start with a blank presentation. So there I go with a blank presentation. When you start up with a blank presentation, what you get is this, okay? The thing that becomes useful in Google and what makes Google work for presentations particularly is when you have to collaborate on a presentation. It makes it really, really useful when you've got 2 or 3 people working on it together. Multiple people are going to be seeing it. So in the upper left-hand corner, you'll name your presentation. Okay. And that automatically saves it. Every 10 seconds, Google saves. That's what makes it my best friend, because invariably I will forget and then I will lose what I worked on the past hour. And you'll note there's my presentation right there. It automatically saved it. It automatically set it up. I am going to hide that thing right there. It's going to bother me. Hide floating meaningfuls. Okay. So there we go. I just kind of want to show you some of the possibilities. You can import slides if you've already done them on PowerPoint. You can make a copy of your entire presentation or slides. You can send it. You can download it as a note. Depending on your purpose or function, think about downloading your presentation as a PDF document, and then you can share it with people. Depending on what you have, sometimes those slides are really useful if you're like, I want to send you a particular image that you can then size up or size down, like in your patterning class, Brianna Janelle, where you can set those images up, save it as a PDF, so people aren't going to go in and tweak it, and then you can share that with people as a possibility. Whether you want to make it available offline so you can sort it. Okay, so these are some of your possibilities. Editing, standard. You can view it in a lot of different ways. When you're putting something in, you can insert images that you either upload or you search, and I'll show you how to use some of your Drive. You can add text boxes, audio and video, shapes, diagrams. Word art is really useful, but that's where Rowan found that problem, like, Mary, your contrast is no good. Because I just grabbed word art and changed the color a little bit, but I needed to change it a little bit more. but you can use word art, and word art, you can also add some of those shadows and some of those emphases to make things a little more clearly visible. You can add lines, all that kind of thing. Format. When you add a slide, you can organize how you want it. You can duplicate things. Changing backgrounds and applying layouts gets really useful, or changing themes. One of the things I want you to notice, I'm not sure if you can see it, but you can add, Google will suggest themes. So if you're like, well, I don't want to think really hard about having to do text and that kind of stuff, maybe some of these themes will suit what the look you're feeling for your presentation. Like for mine on effective presentations, I kind of like the blue and the yellow. You might need it, or I like this one. You might need it for a slightly different purpose, but you can always grab a theme, and that will give you some of those sight lines that become really useful visually. That will give you a couple of different types of text embedded. It will give you a color family. You don't have to. It's useful if that's not necessarily something that's your bag. Yes, Rowan.
No, you hit on it already. The themes, which have actually been both Microsoft and Google do this well, is those themes have actually had a lot of people study, the color contrast, all those things, to really help out and make it easy for people when you're doing these type of presentations.
Exactly. And you can add, change your themes. You can add, like I said, so let's just arbitrarily do black on white's a little harsh for some people's eyes. Let's do gray and black. So you still have some contrast. One of the things that you want to notice with your slide, you can adjust your layout. Once you've chosen a theme, you can then look and see how that theme applies to multiple layouts and decide which type of slide you want to use. This is my title slide, but maybe I want to go into a section header. Maybe I want to have text and body. So those layouts are always preset. If you still want to play, you always have the option of here's a blank slide, and I can add whatever I want to in whatever order that I want to do it. Okay. You can arrange items. Lots of useful tools. You can look at accessibility settings so that there's support for some of those things if some of your audiences need that. Okay. All right. So let's go back and say I'm setting up a presentation on Spanish pilgrimage routes. And there's my title page. Okay. And then when I'm ready for my next slide, I just go in, new slide, and I can duplicate it. I can arbitrarily change the layout. And so say, for example, if I go in my blank slide and I'm like, I want to throw in a photograph. So I want to insert image. If I go to search the web, what's really nice is if you look off to the right-hand side over here, it automatically starts looking. So, and I'm going to look for the main cathedral of Santiago de Compostela, because that talks about pilgrimage. Okay, fine. I like that picture. Great. Click. You've got one image selected. Insert. And if I wanted to fill my whole screen, I can. If I want to shrink it down, I can. I can add multiple pictures and layer them one on top of the other. I could sit there and go, you know what? I really like this picture. I'm going to bring it all the way over. Let's change that a little bit. Sorry, I'm trying to work around the picture box of all of your faces, and it makes things interesting. Here, bring that back over here so I can put it at the right size. That's what I wanted to do. There. Bring it there. Match it there. And then what I can do is I can, if I want to, I can set that as the background. I can save it. Okay. But I can save that slide. Okay. I can save that slide and use that permanently as my background on my presentation if I want to. Okay. So if I go in, choose image, Google image search. Find that one, insert it, done. Now, whenever I create a new slide, that background will be there. So if you want to use a particular image as your background, maybe you don't want it that color saturated, you can adjust that. You'll need to adjust the picture first and then upload it. But you'll note that you have that option. When you go to choose an image, you can upload it, you can bring it from your camera, you can find the URL and so forth, or you can have it already saved in your Google Drive. If I wanted to use an image that I had already saved, I would put it in my Google Drive. Of course, there's nothing here because it's a brand new account, but I can have everything I want saved in my Google Drive and sort it. Okay. Other things that Google allows you to do is to create transitions. Okay. So you'll notice when I did my presentation, things slid over. If you want to do that, you can. You can animate objects if you wish to. Be careful. It is really, really easy to get caught up in, I can make machine gun noises and typewriter noises, and I can make things twirl and spin and fade in. And don't let all of the tricks overwhelm your content. Okay, because that's really easy to do. So use those sparingly and specifically, okay, to show exactly what you want. There are more add-ons. You can always, if you want to add possibilities to your presentation, there's a lot of different applications that you can just add into your Google Slides automatically. As a teacher, I use Pear Deck constantly because that gives me opportunities to add interactions and quizzes and that kind of stuff in there. If you want to insert a video, let's see. Okay, fine. And say, for example, why are you not finding?
While you're searching, just so everybody knows, it is 11:52. There is not a class after this. Lunch is at noon. So if this goes over, that is fine. The next class is not going to be until 1 o'clock.
So probably because this is a brand new account, it's not finding anything. But if I had a URL for a YouTube video, you type the URL, hang on, let me do it. Let me grab it on my other page and I'll copy and paste it that way. Just a sec.
Mary, real quick, while
I'm doing that, please.
I know you could do this with PowerPoint and all the Microsoft stuff, so I'm assuming you could do this with Sheets because I haven't tried it yet. If I insert a chart that's been driven off of a sheet, can I have the option to have it automatically update any changes from, the last change of that saved sheet or saved chart, so to speak?
Yes, if you embed anything from Google and it's an updatable, like a Google Sheet or one of those, it automatically, anytime it's updated, it automatically makes the changes.
Yeah, I assumed it. I just wanted to make sure because I think it was Zeta who'd already dropped off. When you're presenting, a lot of times, especially to an audience that has like live data or analytics or something along those lines, have that capability. The next time you open it up, it automatically pull in the last updated information is pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's really useful. Okay, So meanwhile, just so you know, I found a URL for someone singing a song that I want. I'm going to put that on my video. So there's my URL. And you'll notice the video shopped up. Why did the camera didn't remove it? I just listened to it. Okay. Fine. Google's being difficult. Hang on.
While you're doing that, Mary, the other thing might be pretty cool is Google has a thing called Jamboard for anyone that does a little whiteboarding, which is why I kind of brought up the other thing is if you insert a Jamboard to your presentation, anytime you update the thought pattern, it's really nice too, especially if you're doing things like development of a project or mind mapping or something along those lines.
That works too. Yeah. No, absolutely. In fact, I can, yeah, because Jamboard popped up. For any of you who are drawing anything, if you want to use a Jamboard to preset some of your images and then you can draw arrows and make comments on it, that's really useful. It's like having your own, like Rowan said, your own whiteboard. All right, let's see, precision. Now, insert video. Let's see if it's going to cooperate. If it's not going to cooperate this time, I'm going to move on. See, it shows up. Select that, select. There, now it's creating. Okay, and you'll notice that it embeds it. Because we had the commentary about, well, gosh, I don't want the video to automatically start playing. I might blow up somebody's bandwidth. You don't want to embed the entire video. Instead, what you can do is insert a text box like this. Boom, there's my text box. And I'm going to type in it. Little piece of text. You highlight that. And then one of your options is link. See right there where it says link? And you paste the URL to the video. And notice now that shows up as a highlight, right? And when you click on it, people can click it and follow the video. That is something that's really, really handy. So you don't have, you can set it up so that it auto plays, or you can set it up so that they can go to the link. If you have something where you want people to go look at a file, maybe you want to give them a connection to a really information dense resource that has a lot of illuminated manuscripts in it. You can put a link with the name of the document, and then they can dive in there. And you'll notice I didn't paste the whole wide link. It's just, here's what I named it, and they click on it, and then they can follow it to the page and explore at their leisure. So that becomes a really useful tool. Feel like we're running a little bit low on time. So I want to stop screen sharing, escape, there it is. Are there specific questions I can help address? I noticed there are about 3 questions and comments in chat. Okay, those are answered. Are there any particular things that anyone would like me to address? Any questions, observations, comments? Because we only have about 3 minutes left before it's sort of lunchtime. What can I help you with at the moment with where you are? Brianna, you have frowny face on. What's up?
Nothing, but the various comments have been made here. They have got me to thinking, if something else is done like this, maybe doing something, and I don't necessarily want to throw my hat in, but on some of the accessibility options would be cool. Although I kind of guess I just did throw my hat in there, but
you kind of just did. I look forward to that class from you, Edward. I think that's going to be great. Thank you. That's a fantastic idea. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Tomorrow,
I'd be happy to put together something like that.
Tomorrow at 4 p.m. there is going to be an accessibility class.
Is there? Okay. Cool. I will try and make that.
Yeah, Yannick, thank you for that observation. A lot of it is just go in and muck about, play with it. Because the nice thing is it's really straightforward. If you go into YouTube and you search Kingdom of Kaid, Marie, you'll find the YouTube channel will pop up. Brianna, your question or observation?
No, mostly the frowny face is this is me thinking. and
Ah.
just contemplating the usages. I'm one of those people that works better off of a print than I do off of a video. So I need things broken down in step by step. Is there a place I can go find something like that?
In terms of a text version, so you have a read a thing with screenshots, or watching a video that has, because you said video doesn't really work for you. You'd rather have something that you can like kind of click through.
Yeah, that's part of it. Is I like I like actually reading directions and then being able to follow something like that. The other problem is the way I get a gestalt on something. I'm really hard to teach because I need an interactive person as I'm physically dealing with things. So it's more a case of asking if there's some place where I can find directions on all of this, because I need to be able to connect the dots while I'm doing. And a video is too much information. Auditory information is not as good for me to process as visual information, but stable or static visual information is usually more useful before I step into video. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Is there like a tutorial?
There are tutorials. Go ahead, Ron.
I was going to say, Google has a really good education concept. So if you're inside a product, you can always look for help and tutorials. You can always query like sheet tutorial or presentations and all that kind of stuff. And then there are some pretty good stuff. There's one out of USC, another one out of Berkeley, and a third that will pop up on a straight search. I think MIT will do, Brianna, I think a lot what you're doing, because it's all engineers talking about how to do something. They've overdone the directions as engineers would.
Okay, and do I go look at their websites? What do I look for?
Simple thing is a tutorial. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking of the query I've used in the past. It'd be something along the lines of step-by-step tutorial on Google presentation, or how to create a slide or slideshow, or how to do this. You can also get a little bit more explicit in your Google search about how do I present pattern making, and see if it's already been done or there's templates already out there for you. Always, I think, Mary, I'll throw you out there too, but you know, there's several of us that are pretty good at this stuff because we do it all the time. I know, I think it's, I don't want to get your names wrong, I apologize. Sigard? Is that right? You're on mute.
Me, Sigtrig.
Sigtrig, sorry about that. But there's some really cool ways you could do, I don't know if that's Minicam or one of those secondary software systems that you're using, but there's a lot of good presentation tools.
Yeah.
That you can do picture in picture and all sorts of really fun things.
I can turn my heraldry off. I can bring my my video capture device to there, so you can see me, and then do a screen share here.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
That's fun.
I'm sharing the screen that I'm editing this in, so
yeah, so
like I can swap this out if I'm in a Toastmasters meeting, or Toastmasters badge there, or whatever. See, that's the Dragon of the Populace badge.
So that,
and because this is editing the video that goes into Zoom, so it doesn't act like when you do a screen share in Zoom, it changes the way Zoom behaves. All the screens go small, all the screen share takes over. Whereas here, I can, like, if I want the screen capture to be fairly big, say I want to be taking up half the screen and put that there, I can do that easily enough.
Is that OBS Studio that you talked about in chat?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that app is OBS Studio. Brianna, Janelle, I'm going to share screen real quick and show you where Google Help is,
Okay.
because they have built a lot of these documents.
I appreciate that. And Rowan, you were right. The language I wanted is, I need an engineer's explanation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's fair. All right, so when you go into Google Slides, and whichever app you happen to be in, and you go into your presentation, there it is. So you're in your presentation. The tab on the far right says Help. And you can ask a specific question, or if you're just, like I said, mucking about and wanting to explore, you can, here's popular questions that people ask. You just browse the articles and go, you know, help with Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides.
So I think there's an option under help also called training that is part of their actually, it's a certificate-based training stuff.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me pull that one up. The floating meeting controls make me crazy. So let's see. Under the browse all articles again. Okay, I'm not seeing the training option, but let's.
Go back to your slide.
Yep.
And then go to help again. That's usually where I find. Go
Does it
back.
help for 'em?
So go back to the actual menu item for help.
Ah, there it is. Second thing down, training. Thank
Oh,
you, Rowan. So that's your Google Workspace Learning Center, and they're super useful. Slides, cheat sheet, keyboard shortcuts, and so forth.
excellent. Thank you so very much. That's helpful a lot.
Then if you're presenting, I think this is a little bit more for several people that brought it up, but if you're presenting, you could do things like use your slide presentation. If you go to Zoom, share advanced, you could do a picture in picture kind of slide presentation, which is kind of nice too.
Yeah.
So that allows you to do like a floating face that you can kind of move around and then do your presentation. So if you really want to be interactive with an audience, that's also a good way to do it. That way you also don't have to be very dependent of someone looking at you, like your picture off to the side while you're presenting.
That's an advanced sharing options in Google.
No, in Zoom.
In Zoom, okay.
In Zoom, yeah. So if you go to screen share, advanced, it's one of those options as a presentation, and then that gives you both a kind of your picture or whatever your camera's on. So if you're doing like, here's my presentation, and I want to do maybe Alice Guy for you, how to draw something, you can have a downward camera and the graphics up at the same time about how to do something while you're talking. So they can see you actually draw it while you're doing it, and you can change the size of the picture. The other thing you could do is if you want to do multi-camera, mini-cam, and a few of those other kind of side products, we'll do like 3 or 4 camera setups. So
Very cool.
Different options.
I'm sure this is not on point for this, but I could use help. I bought kind of an expensive document camera, and I can't figure out, I wanted to be able to have my Zoom picture and my document camera up at the same time so I could demo things, and I can't figure out how to get the two of them to work at the same.
Just call me.
Okay, I will do that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 12:06. I've largely finished most of my content. Thank you so much for the conversation and the other things. I love it when I teach a class and I can learn stuff too. I think it's fantastic. I'm so excited. I will post the first presentation thing that I did as a PDF or as a link in the event webpage. And you can also always reach out to me if you have any questions, anything like that. Don't hesitate to reach out via Facebook or email or anything like that. Okay. So
I thank you so much. There's so
Thank
many
you.
bells and whistles that I had never really looked.